About a decade ago, everyone was talking about 3D TVs. Companies spent millions of dollars on marketing because they claimed these new TVs would be the next global revolution in how we enjoy content at home. However, nowadays, no one is talking about them, and most companies have stopped manufacturing them. But what really happened? Were they so bad that they deserve to disappear like that? Or did companies simply move on to the next trend? And most importantly, how does 3D technology work in general, and why are we tricking our brains when we use it? Well, stick around, and I'll tell you all about it. In 2009, an epic movie was released, Avatar, directed by James Cameron. At the time, it became the highest-grossing film in history, surpassing another work by the same director, Titanic. This movie was a huge success for several reasons. It had top-tier CGI, the character animation was on another level, and the world where the story took place, Pandora, was extremely epic with its flora and fauna. But most importantly, all of this was specifically designed to be fully enjoyed in 3D. Special cameras were even designed to film this movie, and as you can see, each camera had 2 lenses. We'll get to why that is in a moment. But why am I telling you the story of Avatar? Well, since it was the most watched movie in the world at the time and was optimized to be best experienced in 3D, it triggered a 3D boom in those years. Although 3D had obviously existed before Avatar, dating back to the 1980s, after the huge success of this film, movie studios started releasing all kinds of movies in 3D. After all, if Avatar had made millions and millions of dollars thanks to its animation and 3D effects, they had to follow the trend, right? Because of this, in the years following Avatar, there was an overwhelming flood of 3D movies. How to Train Your Dragon, Alice in Wonderland, Tron, Toy Story 3, Spider-Man, Thor, even a Shrek movie came out in 3D. This boom in the film industry inevitably led to 3D versions of movies being released for home distribution. However, the TVs we had at the time couldn't display 3D content very easily. So the biggest tech companies quickly started developing and manufacturing 3D-capable TVs to meet this new demand for home 3D viewing. Of course, none of them wanted to be left behind. The 3D as we know it is actually quite interesting, and it's more natural for us than it seems. First, let's do a simple test, and then I'll explain how it works. What you're seeing on your screen right now is a way to see 3D without glasses. All you need to do is move a little away from the screen and cross your eyes slightly so that these 2 black dots merge into one. Once you've merged them, try to focus on the resulting image. It should appear in 3D. I'll leave the image up for a few moments so you can try it. For those who managed to do it, pretty cool, right? Now, why does this happen? Well, humans perceive depth through stereoscopic vision. What does that mean? Most of us have 2 eyes, right? Each of our eyes captures a slightly different image, and our brain combines these 2 images into one, giving us depth perception. Here's another interesting experiment. If you cover one eye and look around, you'll notice that you completely lose your depth perception. It's like watching a 2D movie. But if you open both eyes again, your depth perception returns completely. Pretty amazing, right? It turns out that many years ago, people figured this out. In 1838, almost 200 years ago, Sir Charles Wheatstone invented the stereoscope. This device used mirrors to show each eye a slightly different image, tricking the brain into thinking it was seeing the same object with both eyes, and creating the illusion of 3D. You've probably seen these types of glasses or toys that let you view images in 3D. More recently, modern versions of these toys have been released. These devices use the same principle as the stereoscope. They show each eye a slightly different image to create the illusion of depth. The same thing happens when we go to the movies and watch a 3D film. The glasses filter each image so that the correct one reaches the correct eye. This way, we trick our brains into perceiving depth and seeing the movie in 3D. Now, there were 2 main ways that companies developed 3D for home TVs: active 3D and passive 3D. Let's start with active 3D. The TV alternates images for the left and right eye very quickly, normally about 120 times per second. This means each eye sees 60 frames per second. The glasses have LCD lenses that darken and lighten in sync with the images displayed on the TV. It may sound complicated, but let's look at this example. When the TV shows a yellow cube, only the left eye should see it. So the glasses darken the right eye's lens, effectively covering it, so the left eye sees the yellow cube. Then, when the TV switches to a blue cube, the right eye should see it, so the glasses darken the left eye's lens. This process happens 120 times per second, so fast that we don't notice it. But in reality, we're just showing the brain two slightly different images to trick it into seeing depth. A practical example is these images. If you focus, you'll be able to see the depth of the dinosaur. But you'll notice that two images are being displayed, right? This happens because the speed is very low compared to the 120 times per second that active 3D does it, which is why you can notice it. Now, what were the downsides of this system? First, the glasses needed batteries to work, so they had to be recharged from time to time. They could also interfere with other wireless devices using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, which could cause malfunctions. Additionally, they were heavier than normal glasses, which could make them uncomfortable. But the biggest problem? They were expensive. TVs usually came with 2 pairs of glasses, but if you wanted more for family or friends, you had to buy them separately. Each pair could cost between $150 and $200. An interesting thing I found while researching for this video is that PlayStation released a 3D TV for its consoles. Something unique about these screens was simul-view technology. This allowed 2 players to play a multiplayer game on the same TV but see their own full-screen perspective instead of a split-screen view. For those unfamiliar with this, usually when you play with a friend or sibling, the screen is divided into 2 sections, one for each player. But with this technology, both players could see a full-screen view of their own perspective. Imagine watching a completely different movie or TV show than your sibling or partner on the same monitor. Pretty cool, right? But as we saw, this technology was very expensive, so it was eventually abandoned. Now let's talk about passive 3D. This system used polarized lenses, which were much lighter and cheaper than active 3D glasses. To understand how this works, polarization is a process that filters light, so it only passes in one specific direction. Light normally comes from all angles, but polarized filters allow it to pass only in a specific orientation. 3D TVs using this method displayed 2 images at the same time, one for each eye. These images were polarized differently, one vertically and the other horizontally. The glasses were also polarized in the same way. For example, the right eye would see the horizontally polarized image, while the left eye would see the vertically polarized image. And once again, we tricked the brain into perceiving 3D. However, this method had a major drawback. Since the TV had to display 2 images at the same time, it effectively cut the resolution in half. A full HD 1080p TV could only display a 3D movie at 540p resolution. Since 2 images had to be recorded at the same time, the movie was considerably heavier than its 2D version. 3D technology was, and still is, very expensive to produce. As we saw at the beginning of the video, special cameras costing hundreds of thousands of dollars are needed to record movies. The reason they have 2 lenses is that they simulate the position of human eyes when capturing shots, which are then processed in 3D following the entire process we discussed earlier. For animated movies, this is easier because they only use virtual cameras. That's why most animated films are released in 3D while live-action movies, so to speak, sometimes only come out in 2D to cut costs. The development of TVs capable of displaying 3D content was very complicated because of the main factor companies consider when manufacturing components: cost. What usually makes a technology a worldwide success is the ability to mass produce it at low cost. This wasn't easy to achieve with 3D TVs. Another factor that led to the decline of 3D TVs was that the content was much harder to distribute. The home experience with a 3D TV felt like a very watered-down version of what you'd get in a movie theater with a film like Avatar. Theaters are designed to enhance the experience. There are multiple speakers in carefully arranged positions. The room is dark and acoustically treated. There's no window next to you letting in distracting sunlight. You don't hear your neighbor yelling or dogs barking outside. And most importantly, the screen is about 10 times bigger than the one in your home. Due to all these complications, by 2017, just 6 years after the massive 3D boom in the television industry following Avatar, all major tech companies stopped manufacturing 3D TVs for home use. The same way they appeared and were the talk of the town, today, almost no one talks about them. That said, 3D isn't dead, not at all. Almost every new movie released in theaters has a 3D version. But for now, it seems that experience is going to stay right there. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. I read all comments, so leave one below. Did you ever own a 3D TV, or do you still have one? What brand and model was it? Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!